Hello Pepper Pots, it's time to talk about tarot. It's a long overdue return to something that I love, to something that defines me, something that makes up a big chunk of what I do for work, and something that definitely feeds into a lot of my other passions a great deal. I'm always attaching tarot to other things and linking tarot to my other interests and finding the place where tarot aligns with the other things that I love and the other things that I kind of take and run with. So it's been, I've been a bit quiet on the tarot front since Floodgate 2015. Floodgate was shit. It was absolutely shit. It was the last week of September. It was literally the very last few days of September. I went away to Berlin for 3 or 4 days with my man Badger to celebrate his birthday. It was fucking amazing. And then I got back and my ceiling was on the floor in the studio where I do my readings and my creative stuff, and I made my videos, where I did before I moved. And it was horrible because the place where the ceiling had come down, it had actually missed all of my boyfriend's very expensive musical equipment, his MacBook Pro and his speakers and stuff like that, thank God. But it had landed pretty much directly on top of my bag where I keep my tarot decks. And some of them were destroyed, completely destroyed, stuck together, wet through, colours running, the whole works, everything that you have nightmares about as a tarot deck collector and a tarot reader and a lover of tarot, everything that you wake up in a cold sweat after you have a terrible nightmare about your decks being destroyed by fire or water, like that was my reality when I got back from Berlin. So that was really, really shitty. And it took me a while to recover after Floodgate. I just felt really, I mean, of course I use tarot all the time. I'm shuffling decks every week. It's what I do, I read tarot. And so tarot is woven into the fabric of my reality, very much so. There's no way to get away from it, and I'm not saying I needed a break from it necessarily, but I felt pretty low, especially since 2 of the decks that I lost were decks that I had recently received. One of them was a gift from a client and I loved it, and I was working with it all the time, and I was so excited to do Samhain readings with it the following month. I was just really thrilled about that idea because it was such a dark, potent deck. It was the Bohemian Gothic Tarot. Lost that was no more. And I also lost the Nicoletta Ciccoli, which I had just recently done a unboxing of, and it was really exciting and I just loved it so much, and yeah, I lost that one as well. So I think I just felt a bit dampened, and I knew that my next video, or my next couple of videos, were going to be reviews of the Nicoletta Ciccoli and the Bohemian Gothic. So I just felt a little bit shit, so I just disappeared into my shell and didn't talk about tarot for a while. Although, to be honest with you, I don't really think anyone has missed my tarot chats, because actually on YouTube there's a massive outpouring at the moment of people talking about tarot, and it is infectious and addictive, and I'm loving it. There's just so many people in the last year jumping onto this making videos about tarot thing and just bringing really meaty stuff to the discussion. Yeah, I feel like for a really long time it was like Avalon and Almoon, like holding it up, holding the fort, and like, you know, and now there's shitloads of people riding at the helm with them. There's like a whole legion of people, both men and women and everything in between, fuck the gender binary, oh, everyone talking about tarot, and it's just amazing. And thank you so much if you are one of those people for stimulating me and inspiring me to get back on the horse, because I think it's about time. I refer to myself as a cardslinger, like a gunslinger but with cards. This series is going to be called Cardslinger because it's just basically going to be where I talk shop, and I talk from the perspective of somebody who loves tarot and works with tarot and is ceaselessly interested in tarot. So I kind of felt like I wanted to amalgamate these kinds of videos together to signify that they are going to be my videos where I just get into the subject of tarot. I may talk about different things, I may review or discuss different decks, rather than having separate videos for, I mean, I will have review videos and things like that, but Cardslinger is where I'm going to talk about issues that affect me as a tarot reader, decks that I love, decks that are on my wish list, other people talking about tarot who I love and enjoy. So it's just going to be a collection of stuff, a bit of a mishmash. And, you know, in the comments section below after you've watched this video, let me know if you like this particular style and if you like this format, and I'll definitely keep going and make these kinds of videos with gay abandon and wild enthusiasm if it's something that you really dig. Because for me, I just feel like I'm backed up when it comes to talking about tarot, so I want to get a lot of things into one video and make it really meaty. One question that people ask me so much of the time is, how do I choose a deck for a client? And I'm going to be completely honest, there are my go-tos, and I think that's true of a lot of professional readers. I think a lot of professional readers would say that I do have ones that I tend to rotate more often and I tend to work with more. However, I'm often surprised with myself at you know, the frequency with which I do select a deck that I don't work with very much, that just seems to speak to me. It seems to call to me for a certain client, and I just know that I've got to use that one, you know. I have my set decks for set things. So if I'm doing a reading about self-love or about low confidence or about, you know, healing, emotional healing, something like that, then one of the decks that probably will come to mind is going to be the Psychic Tarot Oracle for the Heart by John Holland, which is an oracle deck, not a tarot deck. And that's definitely a key one that comes up. If I'm doing things like anything to do with problem solving, decision making, or kind of working out the pros and cons of something, then for me, Osho Zen Tarot will often come into my mind while I'm reading the client's query. It will come into my mind and I'll think that's a strong possibility. I'll normally get to the end of the notes before I have that moment of deciding, but those are the kinds of things that feed into my belief that I ought to use Osho Zen, for example. Sometimes for shadow work, more often than not, I do find that I like to work with Tarot of the Wild Unknown. I like to work with Manga Tarot, which is another one that I lost in Floodgate and am shortly about to rebuy. You know, so there are different, for me, I feel like you get into the habit of picking up certain decks that you know work well with a specific query or question. It's not as if I immediately go to a certain deck because I'm doing a shadow work spread or because I'm doing a self-love spread. I still need to read the query, I still need to get a handle on what the client wants. And sometimes, like I said, it will really surprise me and I will just be like, I want to use that deck, that it's just come into my mind that I know that's going to be the one that we're going to get the most meat off the bone with it. But quite often there are times when it doesn't surprise me at all that I've chosen a specific deck. I'm just, you know, I know that it's going to be that one. You get to know what works, what's going to be good, what's going to be not so good. You get to know the ones that are more accessible for certain kinds of subjects. You get to know the ones that are more accessible for helping people to make key decisions, and the ones that are better or more accessible for helping people to heal or find forgiveness in their heart or move on from a broken relationship. You've got to spend time, haven't you? You've got to spend time. You know, tarot decks are dynamic, they're alive, they're animate. And you have to kind of, tarot decks are a little bit like cats, you know. If you're a cat lover, you'll know what I mean. You don't teach the cat who to be. You don't train the cat. You don't, you know, help the cat to adjust to your family life or to the way you run things in your home like you would do with a dog. With a cat, you rock up and you fucking pay attention to who they are. You've got to align with them. You've got to come to have an understanding of what's going on in their soul. And I think that's what excites so many people about cats, and also what freaks so many people out or puts people off about cats as well. I'm a cat and a dog person, by the way. I don't get into that whole rivalry. I'm a vegan. I love all the furry ones, the scaly ones, the swimming ones, the floating ones, the flying ones. I love them all. The creepy crawly ones. Tarot decks are like cats, you know. You have to pay attention. You have to focus on what they are going to give to you and how you're going to rub along together. Earl Grey. Makes me feel money drinking Earl Grey. Makes me feel aristocratic. Sometimes I get a sense of who a client is from their notes, and sometimes a client is a regular, and I've worked with them really quite a few times, and I know, you know, I have a sense of where they are in their life, where they want to be, their key characteristics, you know, their fears and that kind of thing, and that can come into my consideration for choosing a deck as well, which is great. And sometimes I do actually make a decision at the beginning of a day that I'm only going to work with one deck for the day. I have a look at what I've got lined up in terms of readings, and I think to myself, okay, I'm going to select the Vintage Wisdom Oracle, for example, and that's going to be my key working deck. And normally I will just allow that deck to, you know, I'll work with that deck and allow that deck to answer client questions unless I get a very strong intuitive hit that it's not that deck, it's not the deck that I've chosen for the day. It's like, oh no, hang on a minute, no, there's going to be something better for this client, you know. So I just have that feeling. Once in a very little while, I do an 11th hour change, and there's a couple of clients that I've had in the last year that I've had to email afterwards, because at the top of my email readings I always let the client know which deck I used, and when I do an 11th hour change I sometimes forget to amend that deck that I've described at the top. So every so often I do have to email a client afterwards and say, I'm really sorry, at the top of your reading I did say that I was using Rider Waite, but I had an 11th hour change and I actually used Revelations Tarot. or something like that. So, you know, so it's kind of, it's a little bit like that, where sometimes I start to lay out the cards, or I start to shuffle the deck and I think, nah, it's not working. But that won't happen a lot, but it does happen sometimes. I wanted to talk about Wishlist today, tarot Wishlist, because I just recently watched a video by Aaaaaand in which she's serving me up some serious geeky Planner Witch vibes with her Kiki K and talking about her wish list. I'll link that below in the thingy and you can go watch that because it's really, really cool. And I was thinking about my own wish list that I made. I think I've probably had mine for about 8 months or 9 months or something, maybe, I don't know, maybe a year, I don't know. But I've been thinking about how wish lists serve us as tarot and oracle lovers and tarot and oracle collectors, because wish lists allow us to let things marinate, you know, to let your love of something sit in its juices for a little bit, so that you can get a very clear idea of whether or not you actually want it. And it's funny how often your mind does change. For me, I've struck quite a few things off of my wish list after having them on there for a while, because I mull over my wish list and I refer to it every couple of months, or indeed when I have money that I know I want to use to purchase a deck, I'll go through my wish list to see what's actually on my radar. And I will go back and I'll research some of the decks that I placed onto my wish list, and I'll have more of an in-depth look at some of the cards online or watch a couple of reviews. And it's awesome, because quite a few of them I have struck off and realised that they don't really call to me as much as I thought, or I already have something that is very much like it that I'm not utilising as much as maybe I could utilise, or maybe I haven't spent the time with it that I could spend, so maybe it's better to not purchase something that is, you know, incredibly similar to what I already have, and instead get on the bandwagon with the thing that I already have and learn more from it. I think wish lists are also really interesting for looking at your trends, the things that you tend to like, the things that come up time and time again for you that normally end up on your wish list. Like, for example, you might notice that a lot of the decks that you personally favour are what would be termed dark decks or whimsical decks, or whatever the case may be. And you might notice that you definitely favour decks from certain creators or decks from certain publishing houses, and you might be able to kind of look at the patterns that arise and just find some level of interest in that, because I think it is really interesting. And I also think that the kinds of decks that you gravitate towards do change as you personally evolve. You might notice, for example, that you are into decks now that you really wouldn't have liked 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and I think that can be a really interesting exploration and something to look at as well. Just having a little look at what I've got on my tarot and oracle wish list at the moment. Just a few things. I've got the Mary L Tarot and the Morgan Greer Tarot, are two that I really want to get my hands on. Soul Cards 1 and 2, which I discovered through Aaaaaand, and I think with Soul Cards 1 and 2 it looks like you could do quite a few different things with those decks. I actually probably wouldn't be inclined to use soul cards for clients. I think I'd be far more inclined to have soul cards by my altar and to use them for spell work, and also to use them maybe for journaling and personal reflections and that kind of stuff. I'm definitely going to be picking up a new edition of the Star Child Tarot. I really want the Mother Peace Tarot. I've been interested in Mother Peace for a while now. That looks like a really moving deck that I know has been the foundation deck for a great many people. Yeah, it looks really cool, it looks interesting, it's different to anything that I already have. I don't remember what the Universal Love Healing Oracle is. I've got that on my wish list, but I don't recall what it looks like actually. See, the thing that's just happened right now, where I've found something on my wish list that I don't even remember what it looks like or why I wanted it, is a prime example of why wish lists are so fucking useful. Because you do, in the heat of the moment, when you see something on Instagram, or you see a review of something, or even sometimes if you just catch a glimpse of something and you write it down, maybe not on your wish list, but as something to take a further look into later, you do kind of get to go back and reflect and realise maybe it doesn't suit you as much as you thought it did. You know, it just kind of jogs your memory a little bit, and it allows you to keep a running list of things that you might want, but you're going to kind of further investigate before you part with the cash. Yeah, I can see why I want the Universal Love Healing Oracle. It's definitely something I could make use of. Alice Tarot is on my wish list. Serpent Fire Tarot, the Miracles Now Gabby Bernstein deck. True Love Tarot I think looks fucking remarkable, and I've wanted that for the longest time. Lion Strider Tarot I recently placed onto my wish list. That's the most recent deck that's on my wish list. I've got New Wave Tarot on here. That's a tarot deck that's sold on Etsy. Silent Tarot is also on my Etsy wishlist, and Voice of the Stones Oracle is on my Etsy wishlist as well. I also would love a copy of the Twin Peaks Tarot deck, I've got to admit. It can be pretty difficult to get your hands on, it's not cheap, and there's a waiting list. But you know, I'm a huge fan of David Lynch. I have a David Lynch tattoo and really into Twin Peaks and everything, so yeah, that seems like something I should probably own at some point. I've got the Dark Goddess Oracle on here, which I'm really excited about owning. That looks really cool. Also, a client recently showed me while we were speaking on Skype the Spiral Tarot, and I might just pop that on my wish list now because that definitely interests me a lot, and it looks amazing. The colours, the palette is so vivid and so psychedelic, and I think that the haul that Katie Flowers has just done includes the Spiral Tarot, because I didn't have time to watch it this morning, but I did have a glimpse of the comments and somebody has mentioned Spiral Tarot, so I'm really interested to see what she thinks of that. Also, just incidentally, Katie Flowers has just filmed a tarot haul. I'll also link that in the thingy down below so you can go over and take a look at it, because I will be watching it as well later on. Spiral Tarot. Now this moves me on swiftly to some of the new decks that are in my possession, and one of them I can actually cross off of my wish list now because I haven't done so far, and that is Ghosts and Spirits Tarot, which I've wanted for the longest time, and I actually received it in the post just the other day. I also have on my wish list the Paulina Tarot, which I actually didn't end up purchasing. I was going to purchase it, and then I noticed as I was looking through some images of it that I actually preferred the Joie De Vivre Tarot by the same creator. To me, the Paulina Tarot was a little bit too busy, whereas the Joie De Vivre Tarot still had that kind of whimsical flavour to it, and it had that kind of fairy tale-esque vibe to it, but it was much more clean lines, it was a lot less busy, there's a lot less going on in the card, so I feel like your eye is drawn more instantly to the key figure in the card, or the key figures in the card, what's actually kind of going on, rather than the little flourishes, which I think some of them you kind of do need a magnifying glass to really appreciate and to really look at. So yeah, I recently received Joie De Vivre Tarot and also Ghosts and Spirits Tarot, so I will show them to you now. Ghosts and Spirits Tarot is finally mine. I love it. It's by Lisa Hunt, did the illustrations, and it's published by US Game Systems. I've really kind of wanted this for a while, and I knew when I put it on my wish list that it was definitely going to be an emotive deck for me, and it was going to be a deck that brought up some strong feelings for me, and it totally was. In fact, when I opened it the other night, I was moved. I was really actually moved. It did do something to me. And I didn't actually realise, because I didn't do a massive amount of research into the Ghosts and Spirits Tarot before I put it on my wish list. I looked at a lot of the images, but I didn't really have a look at, you know, anything that the illustrator has said about the deck, or any reviews from people or anything like that. I just knew that I wanted it. So I didn't realise that every single image is an image that is taken from a ghost story, or a legend of a spectre or an apparition. Mythology is in there, fairy tales, that kind of stuff. So as I was going through the cards, obviously some of the stories that the illustrations had been taken from or inspired by were very obvious to me, and I immediately was like, oh, I recognise that, that's whatever. And then there were other pictures that reminded me of things that I couldn't quite place and I couldn't quite put my finger on, but I knew that they were from stories. I knew that they were not just kind of, they didn't just exist in the vacuum of Lisa Hunt's mind. They came from somewhere, they had a root, you know, they had an archetype attached to them that I knew of, stories that I've been told in the past, or stories I've come across in my reading before. So it was really exciting to realise that actually every single picture is inspired by a fairy tale or a story of some kind, so that was really, really cool. It says here, Ghosts and Spirits Tarot explores the fascinating subjects of ghosts, surveying supernatural lore and legend from around the world. This luminous deck presents 7927. I'd be a bit short-changed there, wouldn't I? This luminous deck presents 79 ethereal beings, some frightening, some friendly. Through the symbolism of tarot, they deliver their messages from beyond, shedding light on human experiences. I really, really enjoyed the palette that this deck uses. I really love the kind of electric blues and powder blues, the muted greens, the flecks of gold throughout, and I just love the consistency and the style of illustration. There is a lot going on. There is a sense that you kind of have to look very much into the illustrations. There's a foreground, a middle ground, and a background. There's a real depth to the images, really there is. So you kind of almost feel like you have to move your eyes closer to really get the full gist of what's going on in some cases. And there are so many hidden little flourishes, and it just works so beautifully. I'm really impressed with it. I really can't wait to start working with it. One of the interesting things that I thought was so kind of notable about this deck is that there's no devil. In fact, where there should be a card called the devil, the card is actually just called Chains, which I think is really interesting. And I haven't looked at the particular story that this card is inspired by yet. However, the little white book that comes with the deck does kind of explain what each story is, what the creator was inspired by in each case with each card. And so as part of my studying, I am going to be going through and having a look at all of them and doing more research where necessary to get a handle on those fairy tales or stories that I perhaps don't know anything about or I need to kind of research more on. I think this is obviously a prime contender for shadow work readings. It's obviously a really strong choice for Samhain readings, but I also think that there's a lot more to this deck. I definitely don't think it ought to be pigeonholed. I think there's something about it that, like I said, for me is very emotive. In fact, when I saw the Emperor, I think it's the Emperor, let me just have a quick look. Yeah, the Emperor. When I saw the Emperor, I really started to get very emotional. I found that, you know, it really connected me to my inner child and to a sense of wonder, but also a sense of deep pain. There's something about this deck that is very nostalgic and very sentimental, but not in a twee or cliched way. It just really calls home to me my own sense of mortality and my sense of the fact that death and life are ultimately one, and just there's so many associations for me with this deck. I only got my hands on it on Sunday night, and as I'm filming this, it's now Tuesday. So obviously there's not been much time, but you know, I wanted to film an unboxing of this deck and of Joie De Vivre, but I knew, like, when I got this deck and it was on the couch for me packaged when I got home, I just thought to myself, do you know what, I can't wait until the morning for the sunlight and the time to do an unboxing. I need to rip this deck open now. Like, it was really calling to me and I couldn't wait. And I definitely think that is going to be, that's just the essence of what the relationship that I have with this deck is going to be. By the way, I was not supposed to be purchasing decks, but a very, very wonderful woman who was so upset for me when Floodgate happened actually sent me an Amazon gift voucher to buy some decks with, and I thought that was just so, so lovely of her. And I've only got a couple that still need to be purchased, and I have a timeline for when they're going to be purchased, so I thought I'd make a dent in the existing wish list, mostly because it was so fun to have money that I didn't expect to have to spend on decks. And actually, as I'm sure many of you can imagine, it's not that fun repurchasing decks that you had and loved that were destroyed. It's really not fun. It's shit. To spend the money and everything else and then to have to repurchase is horrible. So I thought that I would use the money to get new, shiny new decks. And I have one more deck on the way, actually, that I may do a mystery unboxing with, so I'm not going to mention what it is, but these are the two that have already come. So this is Joie De Vivre Tarot by Paulina Cassidy, who also did the Paulina Tarot, which was the original one that was on my wish list. The Paulina Tarot was shown to me by a client who recommended it to me, and I put it on my wish list immediately after she showed me some cards via Skype. But actually, when I saw the Joie De Vivre Tarot, I thought to myself, now that is probably the one that I would prefer to own first. Like I said, there's just more simplicity to it. It's just kind of cleaner and clearer, more to the point. The little white book for this deck tells you a story of every single character and every single thing that is going on in each of these cards. It's a really sweet little white book that gives you a lot of depth and kind of allows you to dive straight into the imagery and really get a sense of what the creator was thinking about when she made this. Again, this is published by US Games Systems. And when I look at it, you know, there's a lot of whimsy to it, there's a lot of poetry to it, it's got a real kind of Lewis Carroll vibe to it. It's definitely got the creator's same style as what she uses for Paulina, but there's just something a little bit more children's storybook illustration to it, I think, for me personally. Again, I really, really love the palette. that's been chosen. There's some very muted kind of pastels. There's a real kind of sense of looking at a little bit of a light show from behind kind of a veil of fog. There's a warmth to the palette. There are some tones that just come through and are quite striking as well, but yeah, there's a warmth to this palette, and it's definitely very inviting, and it does flow. There's a cheekiness to this deck, and there's some real playful inner child moments to it that are so adorable. She's really put the attention to detail into it. I really enjoy certain little flourishes that I can see that are just really, they just plug me into the magic of what it is to be a tarot reader and to really get to grips with this system. So it's just magic. I'm really pleased that I bought it, and I can't wait to work with it. I can't wait to repurchase Nicoletta Ciccoli so that I can play with these two side by side, because I actually think that there could be quite an interesting collaborative element there. I'd like to do some comparison stuff with those two decks particularly. They give me a very similar vibe. I think the Nicoletta Ciccoli tarot has much more of a dark undertone to it, and I think a lot of people connect with it in the sense that there is a lot of that childlike innocence, but at the same time there is this freaky, almost rotten underbelly to it, which is scary and which speaks much more to the horror end of the spectrum than to the children's, you know, cartoon end of the spectrum. So I think there is something about Nicoletta Ciccoli that speaks to people on that other level, you know, that more kind of dark, unsure kind of level, whereas I do feel that Joie De Vivre is more classically whimsical, but again there is something to it that could be considered a little chilling or unsettling, maybe jarring, I don't know. Maybe it's not that way for other people, but I do feel for me like there are certain aspects to it that, especially where, you know, melancholy is being addressed or loneliness is being addressed, where you could definitely say that there's a darker tone to the deck. So that really interests me, and I think there is definitely cause for comparison between the Nicoletta Ciccoli and the Joie De Vivre in terms of working with them, and using two different decks in order to understand both decks better is something that really attracts me and inspires me. By the way, when I was reading the side of the box for the Ghosts and Spirits Tarot, I did mention that there are 79 ethereal beings, and that is because there is a special bonus card included in this deck, which I thought was really interesting, and I'll just show that to you now as a kind of afterthought. It's not numbered, and I don't think it's intended to be. You know, in the deck when you shuffle it and use it for readings, but isn't it interesting? Like I said, I've got one other deck on the way that I also used the Amazon gift voucher money to buy. Thank you, darling, you know who you are. Love you to pieces, that was so sweet of you. But I won't mention that because I will probably do an unboxing with that and do a little talk about that. But I wanted to mention this deck that I got for my birthday from my man badger's mother, Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. Really, really love this deck. This is absolutely stunning. I'm a real fan of shiny gold on decks. I feel so fucking money when I use a deck like that. I love it. I love that glinting feel of something just being expensive and having that, you know, it's just money. It's just fucking money. What can I say? I love the classic Russian art kind of aristocratic vibe, the Fabergé egg detailing, and just, you know, that whole oval Fabergé egg framing of each image is so wonderful. I love the fact that it feels a little bit like some of the religious iconography that you get in Russia. For those of you who don't know, I have lived in Russia and I have travelled in Russia, and I am very interested in Russian art and Russian history and Russian literature and all the rest of it. So, you know, that was very interesting kind of for me to experience looking at this, and yeah, just seeing the details and stuff. I like the palette. I think it's really cool. I think there's something very beautiful about the way that this deck is arranged, and it speaks to me. It definitely speaks to me. Love the death card. I really, really love the death card in this deck. Death card is one of those kind of make or break cards for me, one of them deal breakers, you know what I mean? I think we all have them, don't we? We all have like certain cards that a deck really needs to have done right from our perspective in order for us to want to own that deck. Some of mine would be Death, the High Priestess, the Moon, and the Three of Swords. For me, those ones, I'll be looking at them. I'll be wanting to know how those ones have been represented. That will be important to me. To a lesser extent as well, I think the Devil, the Queen of Swords, all the Queens, but particularly the Queen of Swords. Queen of Swords might actually be another deal breaker for me. Certainly it's one that I'm very interested in looking at. It's one that I'll spend a lot of time on. I'll have a look at how the creator has decided to do that one. So yeah, there are certain cards that I think we look at, and it's those cards that might determine how well we'll work with the deck, which I think is really interesting and can be really awesome. This is a US Game Systems deck too, and the illustrations are done by the Russian artist Yuri Shakov. Renowned for lacquer miniatures and flawless depictions of Russian folk and fairy tales. The miniature paintings in stunning colour are framed within an oval border against a black field and are reminiscent of imperial Fabergé eggs. The Russian Tower of St. Petersburg is a treasure of symbolism combined with richness and superb art, and that's definitely true. I was watching a review, I can't for the life of me remember which Oracle deck it was now, but I was watching a review of an Oracle deck a couple of days ago from The Truth in Story, and Kelly mentioned that she really wants tarot to come up to speed with the quality of the boxes that you tend to get Oracle decks in. And I could not fucking agree more with her. I'll leave that review that she made in the doobly-doo down below for you to take a look at, and do check out her channel, do subscribe to her. Her reviews, her walkthroughs, her opinions on tarot are flawless, superb. Love you, Kelly, love you. Yeah, but she's right, you know, Oracle deck boxes are bloody sturdy as heck. Just grabbing a couple that I have on hand that are in my rotation, Earth Magic Oracle and Vintage Wisdom Oracle. That quality, you know, it's no wonder I lost tarot decks in Floodgate 2015 and not bloody Oracle decks. There's no water going to get through these babies. There's no excuse for these. Come on, let's bring it up. Let's lift it. Let's fucking lift it. You know, I don't mean to get elitist here, but tarot really needs to up its game, you know. The new kids on the block are taking over in terms of product quality, and that's no bloody good, you know. Come on, tarot, if you think you're hard enough. You know, you think you're the big man, but you're really, quality-wise, you're losing out to Oracle at every turn. Oracle is showing you what the fuck is up, you know. I really want more tarot decks to come in those beautiful boxes. Like Zombie Tarot, the presentation is wonderful, the box is gorgeous. Let's have more of that, you know, let's fucking lift it. I don't know who I've got to talk to or write to, or you know, who I've got to kiss around here to get some decent boxes for tarot decks, but I'm rooting for you, tarot world. I need stronger boxes. Let's bring it. Let's bring the A game to the box situation. Shut up! God, they're worse than me. They're not worse than me. They're not worse than me. I was a seagull in a past life, did you know? I want to talk to you about the Orbifold Tarot. I've been playing with it for a few months now. The creator, Michael, got in touch with me last year and asked if I would like a copy to play with and experiment with. And I saw the images and I nearly fell off my fucking chair. I really do believe that this is a breakthrough for tarot. It's something that hasn't been done before. And I've been sent a few decks in my time by creators, and I've had some really great relationships with creators, but I have also turned down a lot of offers for decks politely, purely because I really feel like if I'm going to be gifted a deck with the interest from the creator of getting a review or an opinion, you know, or me forging some kind of a relationship with the deck so I can tell them what I think of it, then I want it to be a deck that I really am already enthusiastic about and that I can really see myself working with. And with Orbifold, I was just like, you need to send me this like yesterday. This is unbelievable. This is sacred geometry. This is fractal mathematics. It's incredible. And when I started working with it, I really did feel like you know, Orbifold provides me with doorways to the astral, and it's incredible what happens when you have a deck that doesn't have illustrations, that isn't leading you in any particular direction, that is only playing with shape and colour and formation, you know, patterns. It's really, really interesting how at that point you take all of your prior associations of a card, all of your understandings of its meaning, and all of the energies that it represents to you, and you attach them to this abstract idea where you go into kind of a trance state and you kind of enter into the vortex of the pattern that has been provided for you. And it is kind of like speaking with a disembodied intelligence in a way, because the deck isn't taking you anywhere. The deck isn't really telling you what to think or feel. The creator isn't giving you this artistic interpretation born of his or her own psychic flavours, if you like. It isn't like that. It's absolutely open to you taking your prior associations and moving into the trance state almost, if you will, without any kind of illustrative domination. I'm rambling because it's so difficult to explain really the true potential of this deck and the experiences that I've had with it so far. But lucky for you, if you're interested in this deck, I did just resuscitate my deck of the month feature on my blog, and I have actually blogged about the Orbifold Tarot and my thoughts and feelings on it. And so I will link in the down bar to my deck of the month Orbifold Tarot musings, and you can see for yourself what the pure potential of this deck is and get a sense of whether or not you would like to work with it. This has been Cardslinger. You've been amazing. Again, please let me know down below if you like this format, if it's okay, you know, if you think it's kind of, it grabs your attention for me to ramble about different things. I've really enjoyed this. I actually really like this format, so it's definitely a winner for me. But is it winner chicken dinner for all of you lot? Because that's what I want to know. A couple of things. Join my newsletter if you haven't already. If you would like to receive some free private SoundCloud audio files and private unlisted YouTube videos for Valentine's Day. I'm going to be sending some stuff out on the 14th of February to everybody on my newsletter list. You can subscribe over at kellyaannmaddox.com in the sidebar on the right hand side of the website. So yeah, if you're not subscribed, subscribe. I'm going to be sending Valentine's Day goodies, Valentine's Day swag to my newsletter subscribers, so make sure that you are involved. I want to send you some stuff to do with emotional healing and self-love and empowerment and self-respect and all that good shizzle, because Valentine's Day shouldn't just be about others, it should be about self. It should be about you, celebrating you and being there for you, wishing yourself a happy Valentine's Day. So let's do that kids. I'm making some updates to my shop. I will let you guys know in another video when that's kind of going to be happening. But yeah, my readings are going to be changing. I'm going to be offering, as well as email and Skype, I'm also now going to be offering unlisted video readings, so you can actually have a video reading from me. You can sit down and settle in with a cup of tea and write some notes while you have your video reading. And I've decided to do this as a result of having a couple of video readings from the immensely talented and very, very cool Eric Silvermoon. I love the video reading format. I really enjoyed myself. It was wondrous, and I want to offer that to my clients as well. So yeah, I'm going to be offering video readings, and I'm also going to be offering photos of the spread from now on with my email readings as well. Once these changes take place, photos of the spread will be a part of the purchase option. So yeah, some things are going to be changing. I'll let you guys know, but keep an eye on the shop, keep an eye on the Work With Me tab over at kellyaannmaddox.com. And finally, I now do have a PO box where you can send physical things, because we have not mastered teleportation yet, sadly. So if you want to send me anything, you will find in the down bar below that I have an address now in central Manchester where you can send things to me and they will forward it on to me. I have finally had to bite the bullet and do this and actually get a PO box service, because over the years that I've been doing what I'm doing online, quite a few people have asked if they can have my home address to send me things. And sometimes if somebody has a very strong online presence and I get a sense of who they are, you know, and I get a sense that they're part of the community, I will say yes. But a lot of the time I don't really know who people are, and sadly I've had to turn people down for having my personal address because I'm just really fucking cagey like that, and I think everybody should be, you know. So it's been really sad for me to have to say, no, you can't send your tangible thing to me, I'm really sorry, but I don't have a PO box and I don't like to, you know, let my address out there into the big wide world. So now there is the opportunity for anybody who wants to send me anything tangible to do so. Go ahead and do so. And that's all, that's really it. So very, very much love, guys. Blessed be. Thanks for watching. Oh.